Hey guys, welcome to another episode of The Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick.
I'm Ian.
Today we're talking about something that there was a conversation on the Facebook group a while back now about how nostalgia plays into bands we used to like in our youth and whether or not we kind of look back on them and really kind of dislike that music and kind of how nostalgia plays in all that. There's a bunch of links down below. Make sure you go check them out. There's links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music weekly playlist we put together, and also the Patreon page. So make sure you go check all that out. Of course, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give us the old thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time we release new episodes. So kind of the root of this conversation that we had in the Facebook group was whether or not we like bands from our youth, or whether or not we kind of look back on them and think it was terrible music, or the music sucked, or how do we ever like that kind of music, and really kind of how nostalgia plays in all of that.
Is nostalgia like the rose-colored glasses we put over it when we say we still like something that we did like before,
when really it's just garbage.
Really it's just not good, yeah. Right?
Really, kind of off the top of my head, I really couldn't think of any bands from my youth where I kind of look back on and like strongly dislike their music. Right. Yeah, there's lots of stuff I listened to as a kid that I lost interest in. Musical taste change over the years. Absolutely. You brought up a good one before we started recording with Bon Jovi. When Slippery When Wet came out, I was a huge Bon Jovi fan.
Even into like New Jersey, which was a few years later.
Yeah.
But after that, their music's kind of changed, and then we were changing, we were growing up, and our musical tastes were changing. You know, me personally, I was moving away from that kind of music for a little while. And even looking back, I don't really like the stuff that came after. I can still appreciate the stuff I like.
Yeah, it's not like I look back on New Jersey and think, "Oh my God, what was I thinking listening to that?"
Yeah, and that's a perfect example because I have revisited New Jersey as an adult, having pretty much worn that cassette out in say 1989 and 1990 when it came out. Having worn that cassette out, I've reevaluated it as an adult, and I don't like it as much as I would never really go back and listen to it again. Yeah. Doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that I'm a different person. Yeah. But there's an appreciation that I get from the nostalgia of Slippery When Wet specifically, because that's one I can revisit again. Yeah. You know, it doesn't mean it's better than New Jersey. It just means I have a more emotional connection to it.
And especially like a lot of I'd say mid to late 90s alternative music. There's a lot of stuff I'll go back and I'll stream the album. I don't think I really have bought anything that I dislike, but there's a lot of albums I'll go back and revisit and go, okay, I like a couple of songs on there, but a lot of it's kind of meh for me.
Right.
But it's nothing that I'm like, oh my God, I could never listen to this garbage again.
Right. And I would say even there's even cases where specifically the band Dangerous Toys, their first album, I still love that album. I love it. Their second album, when I was young, I loved that too. I don't like it anymore. Yeah. You know, so there can be some, change there. Some, well, this is good, but this is not good, or at least in my opinion isn't good. But to discredit it, I can't wipe any artist I used to like out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I think it helps. A lot of the stuff you listen to, especially when you're younger, I think it helps kind of form the basis of your musical interest, and you kind of grow from there.
Right. Yeah. And exactly. Without some of that early stuff, what path of musical taste might you have gone? You know. Yeah. So, and you're always going to go back to your roots, and to some degree, I feel I do. But the reverse is also true. There's a lot of music that was new when I was young that I was like, that's terrible. Yeah. And now I've reevaluated it as an adult and gone, no, that was actually really good. What was wrong with me?
Yeah. Well, because for me, I was growing up, I was a big Black Sabbath fan. I used to listen to my dad's Black Sabbath records when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And I was a big, huge fan of the Ozzy era. Right. And then I never listened to any of the Dio stuff.
Right. Because there was that disconnect.
Exactly. Heaven and Hell's a fantastic album.
Very good.
I started listening to that and Mob Rules just within the last probably year and a half.
Yeah. And for me, I would say, what would be an artist? Well, I came around to Green Day slow.
Yeah.
I had to kind of grow into that. I didn't jump on that like when it first came out like everyone else did. It had to really grow on me.
It's probably,
now Green Day's in they're like top 10 bands.
Yeah, it was probably when Warning came out, maybe.
No, I was into them before that, but it wasn't. It was say between Nimrod and Warning.
Okay.
So
then the second part of that conversation was really kind of how nostalgia plays into all that, because for me, music is very nostalgic for me. Even the stuff I listen to. I'm not a huge Michael Jackson fan, but one of my earliest memories is sitting on the floor of my bedroom listening to Thriller on one of those plastic. It's probably like a Fisher-Price plastic turntable.
Yeah.
So listening to that album,
those old suitcase.
It really brings me back to that time period. Listening to Nevermind really brings me back to the early '90s when I first discovered grunge music. So it's like, I think music in general is always going to be nostalgic.
Yeah, I think because in the conversation, nostalgia was mentioned as kind of a negative. Because I think it was mentioned music is either good or bad, whether or not it's the nostalgia plays a part.
Yeah.
And I don't think that can't be true. First of all, just because music is subjective, art is always going to be subjective.
Yeah, absolutely.
But music specifically is, as an art form, brings out an emotional response, regardless whether it's a positive emotion or a sad emotion. That's what music does, and it's always how you appreciate certain types of music and certain songs is always going to be connected to how it affects you on an emotional level. Yeah. So you can't separate the nostalgia from it. It all plays into it and off of each other. Right.
And I would say, as far as like music is subjective, of course it is. I would say music is probably the most subjective form of art.
I mean, the argument can surely be made. And it could come from the fact that there's so much of it, You're always, and it's more part of a popular culture too. Music and film. You can probably say those are the two most subjective art forms, because you don't have millions and millions of people going to the art galleries anymore. That's true. Paintings can't necessarily be subjective or be considered as subjective as music, because it's not as fast.
There's not as many variables with it.
Right, exactly.
But I think for a lot of us, that collect records, that collect CDs, that collect DVDs and Blu-rays, I think there's always that nostalgia factor that plays into all that. Mm-hmm. Because, growing up and, having a physical form of something and then losing that over the last, decade or so, and really everything kind of going to a digital format, I think is always going to kind of, like I said, that nostalgia is going to bring us back to that earlier part in our lives where that was such a dominant thing. I
mean, arguably it is the foundation of our channel and our hobby of collecting records.
Yeah.
Collecting records, we do it, at least for us, we do it because it reminds us of our youth when we had records, and that was the dominant music media. Yeah. So
yeah, I think it definitely plays a role in it.
So it plays a huge role, I think, for me. That's what it is. I the nostalgia of holding that record and putting it on the turntable, watching it spin, having the liner notes, having the artwork, all that stuff from my childhood is what makes me want to collect records now. Because otherwise, I don't think I would do it. If it weren't for that, I wouldn't do it. It's way too expensive.
Especially in 2023, it's way expensive.
It's way more expensive than it should be as a hobby for someone who doesn't have that emotional connection to it.
But the funny thing, saying that though, you're seeing younger and younger generations get into it, not really because of the nostalgia, basically just off of the love of music.
Right. True, but they're establishing that emotional connection, I feel. So we're coming from it from a past emotional experience. They're developing an emotional experience with it. The same way that we would have with CDs to some degree, because it was new. We were coming to it. To younger generations, vinyl is new. It's not old. It's new. So there's that. This is part of our time period. That's how they're seeing it. This is new for us. So there's still going to be an emotional connection to it, ultimately.
Yeah. I guess that's kind of what I want to throw out to you guys. drop us a comment down below. Let us know, are there bands from your youth where you look back on and say, what was I thinking? I can't believe I listened to this garbage. Or do you kind of fall more on the line, on the side with us, where it's like, there's stuff we don't listen to anymore, but we still have an appreciation for what we did listen to.
Yeah, I don't look back and think anything I ever listened to was garbage. At least off the top of my head, I can't think of anything. But like you said, there's stuff that I just don't listen to anymore. I outgrew.
Absolutely. But like I said, let us know what you guys think. I'm sure we'll get all sorts of comments on this one. But if you guys enjoyed the episode, make sure you give us the old thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. And that's all we got. Until next time.
Talk to y'all later.
Keep on spinning. Peace.